So they were so prepared to avenge their loss at Adwa and also at Dogali.
We are a peace-loving country and have much work to do here in Ethiopia.
They were perfecting their revenge.
After 5 years of struggle, we were able to win against a very advanced foreign power. Hello everyone, you're watching Between the Pictures on Afro News. I'm your host El Sharait Alahun, along with my co-hosts Zelalem Demisey and Helen Taddasa. We have a special episode today to celebrate the 82nd Ethiopian Patriotic Victory Day. So that's what's up.
Yes, so Ethiopian Patriotic Victory Day is a national holiday celebrated on the 5th of May every year. So the celebration commemorates the gallantry of the Ethiopian Patriots in the struggle of the 5 year against the occupying Italian Force.
Yes, as Helen said it, the Ethiopian Patriot Victory Day is a national holiday celebrated all over the country. But the most colorful celebration takes place at Victory Monument around Arakilo, in the presence of high-ranking government officials and junior patriots.
Yeah. Okay, so to commemorate that, we're going to take you back in time and revisit history. I believe it's so important to celebrate Ethiopian Patriots Victory Day. Because, sir, do not try and stop me with that. Get that away from me.
You know what this is? This is a spear, locally called Thor. This is the most important weapon our forefathers used to fight many battles. It's also a symbol of victory, right? So I think I should put it where it belongs.
Yeah, before you
stab one of us.
Exactly. So let me tell you about mine. This is called agelgel, or you can call it a lunchbox, where the woman carried fresh food and durable food for the fighters, like kwanta or dried meats or kolo cereal. So the fighters were having fresh food while they were fighting. So this is called lunchbox or agelgel. I just want to tell you that.
That's actually
and also you can have some kolo from my agelgel because I packed some.
Is it fresh?
Yeah, I learned from my ancestors.
Yeah, my one. Yeah.
Have some.
Like, it's very durable. Like, that's what I really like about it.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay.
You shouldn't be seated when you hand out the kolo. That's not the culture.
That's not the culture.
My bad.
What
Should I stand up again?
Yeah,
Come on, forgive me for once at least.
Now you're forgiven. Okay, so as I was saying earlier, I think it's very important to celebrate Ethiopian Patriots Day because it was a very difficult war for our forefathers. So in Adwa's case, I spoke to some historians and they told me that, well, at that time, Ethiopians had advanced weapons because we had different countries giving us weaponries and artilleries. But that was not the case 40 years later because nothing changed for us. And 40 years later, the Italians were very advanced. So after 5 years of struggle, we were able to win against a very advanced foreign power. So I think it's very important. It's a very, very important day to commemorate. And it just surprises me because we did not know what tank, our forefathers did not know what tank looked like until they first saw it. And the mustard gas, just everything was very difficult for them. But despite that, they were relentless.
It's good you mentioned what happened at the Battle of Adwa, because armament-wise, military weapons-wise, and even number-wise, we were somehow equal. But when it comes to the second Italo-Ethiopian War, things were different. It was horrible what happened during the start of the Italo-Ethiopian War.
Yes, they came prepared, like they have a stockpile of money, tanks, and many modern civilized guns. Also, even they come with a poison gas that bring a lot of damage to Ethiopia. And so they were so prepared to avenge their loss at Adwa and also at Dogali. So they were just here to avenge and to get revenge.
Yeah, and the mustard gas that they used was actually banned. And despite that, they decided to come and attack us. And when they were attacking us, we were part of the
League of Nations.
We were part of the League of Nations. So despite that, they decided to attack us and to use the mustard gas against innocent Ethiopian people. Exactly.
Yeah, 40 years, they never forget about Ethiopia.
Yeah.
They never forget about Adwa, what happened at Adwa. And before Adwa, there was a battle won by Rasalula Paniga at Dogali. They even never forgot about that.
Yeah.
So they were perfecting their revenge. And when they come back after 40 years, it was massive. You know, they had 400 airplanes. Ethiopians had only 8, and most of those airplanes were, you know, transport for cargo.
For logistics.
They were not functional for battlefields. Tanks, and about, you know, between 360 to 400,000 soldiers, many are from Italy, and then maybe 150,000 from, you know, conscripts from areas controlled by Italy.
Yeah.
So you cannot even, you know, compare the military capabilities between Italy and Ethiopia.
Yeah.
The victory was predetermined for Italy.
Exactly.
They know that, because they did their homework.
But that did give us some confidence, because like, okay, we won this war before and it's okay. Like, we're gonna do it again. We're gonna be victorious again. And it makes sense for the Italians to retaliate, because it was very humiliating for them. They were the only European power to be defeated by an African force. So it makes sense for them to retaliate. But it was just so brutal. Like, I was reading it, and in one setting or in one war, like 10,000 Ethiopians would just die. And it's not like from a face-to-face battle or anything. It's just
this is what happened in 1922. Benito Mussolini came to power. He was a fascist. Not just Benito Mussolini, his party, fascist party, came to power. And then, as we've said earlier, they never forget about Adwa. So they were perfecting their revenge. And then they were actually acting as friends with Ethiopia, signing agreements, signing friendship agreements with Ethiopia, with the emperor. The emperor even was, you know, confident that something like that would happen to his country. So Mussolini was preparing massive amount of armaments, everything. So because Italy during that time was one of the advanced countries, it was like France or England. Ethiopians, I mean, we don't even need to talk about.
We didn't stand a chance.
Yeah, we never did, never stand a chance. So in 1936, in October 1936, they opened, you know, war. They waged war. They invaded Ethiopia in 2 fronts, from Eritrea in the north and from Italian Somaliland. And then actually they marched easily, because one, the Ethiopian military were told not to engage the Italians. The intention was, as history tells us, the emperor wanted first to let the international community that Italy is the aggressor, Italy is the invading force, and 2, he maybe wanted to prepare himself, mobilize his army, but it didn't work. And many, you know, battles were fought in Tigray and then in Amhara regions. And the final, you know, decisive battle was fought at the Battle of Maicho.
Yeah.
And then there, you know, the Ethiopians were, you know, they knew they did not stand a chance, but they gave it a try. And then they lost. So what happened was, it was almost an easy march towards the capital, to Addis Ababa. And then the emperor eventually fled the country. So the Italians marched to Addis Ababa, and then on May 5th, they entered Addis Ababa. They captured Addis Ababa. But in between capturing Addis Ababa and the emperor fleeing the country, the Italians did some despicable things to Ethiopians. You know, there was this, it was not a battle. So the defeated Ethiopian force fled southwards to Addis Ababa. And when they reached the place called Ashenge, so the Ashenge was a plain lake area. So the Ethiopians knew if they tried to cross that place, the Italian airplanes would come and bomb them. So they wanted to hide, to shelter in bushes
until night.
Until
so
night.
They cannot cross in daylight.
Yes. But the Italians knew that. They had information. So what they did was, they, you know, distributed leaflets from their airplanes. And then the Ethiopians, you know, got those leaflets and then read them, and then it says, we do not have problems with you. Our problem is with the emperor, with your king.
Yes.
So you can, you know, cross. You can go wherever you want to go.
In daylight. They're just tricking them.
Yeah, you don't need to hide. And then they trusted. The Ethiopians, you know, one thing that intrigues me is they were not just braves. Seriously, they are trusting. So they trusted an alien word, a word from an alien, an invading alien. So just tried to cross. What they did was horrible. Tens of thousands of people perished around Lake Ashenge. They bombarded them. You know, history says that almost 73 tons of bombs and mustard gas was dropped on them. Yeah. Even the
plane was flying low,
as low as 10 meters from the ground.
And killing them with the machine gun.
With the machine gun.
Yes.
Yeah.
So people were, you know, being bombarded with mustard gas, and then they think going into the water would spare them, and then they follow them even into the water, and another thousands perished.
They were so cruel to a point where the Askaris, like the ones from Eritrea and from Libya who joined the Italian Force, decided to join the Ethiopian Force because they saw how cruel the Italians were. That's how much cruel they were, like even their own betrayed them.
Well, Ethiopians were not perfect then, even. There were some people collaborating with the invaders, but we are not concerned with them because they were fooled by the Italians. They promised them money, they promised them titles, they promised them money, but millions of Ethiopians were against it. They were defending their freedom. They were defending their independence. No Ethiopian, millions of Ethiopians wanted the Ethiopians to go soon. When they start, invading Ethiopia, Graziani, who marched from southeast, promised Mussolini that I will give you Ethiopia with or without its people. See?
Yeah.
So one thing that also amazed me was as they were, marching southwards from north, so most of the Eritrean soldiers used to, test the soil. You know why do they do that? Because they have been promised they will be, given land. So they were testing, and then this might be good for certain kind of agriculture. You see? So they were that confident that Ethiopia would be theirs 100%.
So during the phase 1 patriotic movement, we can mention the Black Lions, who are a group of intellectuals and young army officers or young officers, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about this.
Yeah, they were actually from Holeta Military Academy, young cadets, and there were also other members who are Ethiopians who were educated abroad. So what they tried, they set up this organization called the Black Lion. They were based in, around Western Ethiopia, around Wolaga. They were active, but their movement did not last long. It did not even last a year.
Most of them were executed.
But they did one thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The burning of those 3 planes, right? Yeah.
So there was this incident. So most Italian generals traveled to Wolaga basically to mobilize the people, the nobilities of Wolaga against, the patriots and the government of Ethiopia, maybe accepting the Italian role. What happened was those Black Lion Movement members ambushed them, burned their planes, and then killed 12 of the 13
Yes,
generals.
only one survived, including the air marshal.
Yes, and one of those killed was commander of the Italian Air Force,
yes.
I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
But, things did not go well for the Black Lion Movement, and they withered, and before, it's been a year.
Yeah, most of them surrendered.
Yeah, most of them surrendered.
Most of them were executed, and some of them surrendered.
Yeah. So this daring operation, it just infiltrated Graziani and led a bombardment in Nakamte. If you remember, there was a massacre because he wanted to revenge or avenge the days of his 12 officials. So there was a massacre in Nakamte. In the history book, it was like unseen before. A lot of people had died for that.
And it was called. So it is known as the Wolaga Massacre.
Yes.
Yeah.
Until the Yekatit Astrawlit massacre, where 40,000 people, 40,000 Ethiopians were killed because of an attempt made by Abraham Demuj and Moges Askudo.
Yeah.
So they dropped a bomb, and one of it it exploded near Rudolf Graziani, and it injured him. So he was.
Actually, they wanted to kill him.
They wanted to kill him, but they were unsuccessful. So he retaliated. He in turn killed 40,000 Ethiopians without discriminating anyone. They
It was just a killing.
Yes.
That was I have no word to describe what he did. So what happened was he was wounded.
Yeah.
After those two boys dropped a bomb, the place was Ganat al-Ul.
They were celebrating the birthday of.
They were celebrating the birth of a princess, and then they gathered all the destitutes in Addis Ababa and some nobilities, and then they want to donate or give me or say reward to. Yeah, they wanted to show off by giving them 2 mattresses to each destitute and poor people, and that happened. Those boys, threw the bomb, and then. It was unfortunate he did not die.
I know, I feel your pain. I feel it too. Yes.
So he just ordered the massacre, the indiscriminate killing of, at that time the number of residents in Addis Ababa is maybe estimated to be 100,000, and he killed in 3 days
almost
40,000,
almost
3,000 or more. So pregnant women were, I don't even dare to say that.
Yeah.
Pregnant women, young, especially young and educated, were targeted, killed them, and houses were burned while the people are
still inside.
So they were proud. Some were even complaining for not being able to kill more than 2 people. Yeah, so it was a
very sad day for Ethiopia.
A very sad day, and this also signifies, the start of the second phase of a patriotic movement. So during the first phase, you can mention names like Ras Desta, Balcha Safo, people like that, and they were actually killed. They were not successful. Some of them were even betrayed. But after the massacre after the so-called Graziani massacre, the Ethiopians opened their eyes.
Yes, the movement became like nationwide.
Right? So the first phase of the patriotic movement was limited around the Addis and the vicinity of Addis Ababa. And after that incident in February 1937, now the movement, the resistance fight became nationwide.
And the second phase, there are some we had a lot of patriots, patriotic fighters. And so what they basically did is they participated in cutting telegraph wires. They ambushed the Italians. They were looting, robbing government warehouses. They actually did quite a lot, especially women. They took part in spying, cutting telegraph wire. And communication was very key because we had a disadvantage because we did not have radio communication, and the country did not have a leadership figure either. So it was kind of difficult for people to, they were seeking direction, and they didn't have a leader figure because the emperor was exiled from his country. So it was very difficult for Ethiopians, but they still made it work. But speaking of the patriots, there are some people that we can mention, for instance. So we have Jagama Kelo and Balai Zaleka, 2 brave Ethiopian patriots who fought within the who fought to the nail.
Jagama Kelo, he was very young. He was like 15 years old at the time, and then he doesn't even have a rifle or a gun to fight them, but his brother has one. So they ambushed Italians, and then they killed them, and then they took their guns and then armed themselves. That's how he was like doing. Jagama Kelo is only 15 by the time. And also when you mentioned Balai Zaleka, he was what we call a bandit. Like he had some problems with the time of administration, and then he was living in the forest. We can call him Shifta or bandit. But when it comes to Ethiopia, when the country is invaded by Italian force, he came and then he ambushed Italians and then killed some of them, and then he even captured a convoy. Like he killed a lot of Italians and capture their convoy. Like Balai Zaleka and Jagama Kelo had done a very outstanding job.
You know what I really love about Ethiopians is the fact that they might have their own differences and their own problems, but in front of a foreign army or a foreign invader, they're going to come together and make sure that the foreign army is destroyed. And I just love about that. I just love that about them. There was this one guy who was also 15, and he was saying, we're going to fight until our blood is spilled, like we're gonna fight to death, and we're gonna liberate our country. And he was only 15, and I'm trying to think back what I was doing when I was 15, and I'm
watching High School Musical.
Watching High School Musical, exactly. It's like, it is. They're built different, honestly. Maybe it could be the circumstances, but if you really think about it, they're very mature for their age.
I am 15 years old. My home is in Addis Ababa. Italy wants to make war against my people. We are a peace-loving country and have much work to do here in Ethiopia without being troubled by foreign countries. We do not want war, but if we are attacked, we fight to the last drop of our blood to protect our home.
We might not have that kind of strong weapons or whatever, but the Ethiopians' mentality, Jesus, like I don't even have a word to explain how strong they are.
Yeah.
Like we are actually. Yes.
You know, for the Italians, the Ethiopians did not make it safe at all.
Exactly.
You know, they of course occupied Ethiopian territory for 5 years, but it was not 100% kind of occupied. Of course, they only had control over 1/3 of the Ethiopian territory.
Yes.
It's because our brave gallantry fighters.
Haven't given them a chance.
No, never.
Exactly.
So the Italians were basically controlling some urban areas. The rural areas, the forest, were for the Ethiopians' lands to roam. But the plan was for the Italians, after completely occupying Ethiopia, they wanted to settle millions of Italians on Ethiopian lands. Even so, what happened was some Italians actually came and then settled here, trying to the agriculture.
Farm on our fertile land.
Yeah, they did try
exactly.
that. But the Patriots gave them hard time. So they were advising their relatives back in Italy, please, these Ethiopians are monsters. Don't come to Ethiopia.
This place is a nightmare.
Where you are, it's safe for you. Don't try to come Ethiopia.
Yeah.
It's not a land to be conquered.
And like no one's going to give up, especially after the victory of Adwa.
Yeah.
It gave a lot of Ethiopians confidence and like bravery and sense of courage. So I don't think it was going to happen.
Not just Ethiopia. Adwa is actually a symbol of independence to all Africans and black people in general.
Yes.
The same thing is true for the battles fought for 5 years in Ethiopia, because the Italian invasion did not disrupt any civilization or any political or social process in Ethiopia. It was only for 5 years. Those who impacted were only in our urban areas. So basically, Ethiopia remained unchanged. Basically, there were some technological and social change, but basically Ethiopian society remained unchanged. And again, Ethiopians, showed they are, model for, fight for freedom.
Yes.
They were willing to give everything. What is the ultimate sacrifice that you could do?
Yourself.
The
Your life,
Ethiopians were selfless. They were barefooted when they faced tanks. They were running barefoot, and then shooting on planes flying above them. See, you cannot possibly have a word to describe their bravery.
They see giving themselves their life for their country as valor, and I think that's what kept them going, because after losing over 10,000 people, especially in the one fighting and in one specific fighting, they lost 10,000 Ethiopians. And it was unexpected, and as I said earlier, they didn't even get the chance to fight them face to face. And right after that, like for most people, like you'd think, okay, fine, they're going to give up at this point because they know that they can't stand the chance. But despite that, they decide to go ahead and fight, and that's amazing. And that's not where the bravery of Ethiopians end.
Sure.
It goes to Rome, because we have people like Addis Ababa and
Theyre.
Exactly.
So what
Let me do this again. Let me do this
Okay.
again. Because we have people like Theyre and Addis Ababa, which sounds like straight out of an action movie, a ninja movie, I'd say.
Yes.
So,
So what Theyre did was, she was only at the time 21 years old. So actually, what the Italians used to do was they exile Ethiopian nobilities, the races, the Dejazmaches, people like the nobilities and the educated Ethiopians. They first exiled them to Libya and then to Rome. So Theyre was taken to Rome as a translator to the races, right? To the Ethiopian nobility. So there was this ceremony. They were commemorating 1 year anniversary of the capture of Addis Ababa. And then if you notice, there is a Lion of Judah statue or symbol erected around Lagahar. You know that, right? So it was taken to Rome as a symbol of victory by the Italians. And then at the square in Rome, they were displaying and then mocking that Lion of Judah sign. So the rider race was, nominated to deliver a gift to the Italian nobility, to the king, on behalf of, the Ethiopian colony. So he saw people mocking that Lion of Judah symbol. He could not take it.
Not on my watch.
Ethiopian
It was in Rome, in the middle of Rome.
Yes.
He was 21 years old. See? So he just drew his sword. I think it was the gift he was supposed to deliver, the sword. So he just drew his sword, ran like a crazy person.
He just delivered the gift
towards those people.
Yeah.
And then, history has it that he may have killed, about more than 5 people.
Oh, she got
in
the
their
king.
country.
He was wounded, he was shot, he was wounded. It was surprising that they did not kill him, inside. He got treatment, and then a few years later he died, they say. But that was, as you said, a hero straight from a hero's book.
Yeah, exactly.
Superheroes.
We also have Abdisaga, and I just love his story. It is so fascinating. Yeah. So growing up, my mom used to tell me about his story. So it's fascinating. So get this. So he was part of the patriotic movement here. So they took him to Italy. They captured him and took him to Italy, and they imprisoned him in the concentration camp. So him and his friend, he had a Yugoslav friend called Captain Julio. So what they basically did is they took a bed sheet and they tied it together, and they tied it to a guardrail, and they descended down the tied sheet, like ninja style. So he got out of there. It was so interesting.
Ninja. No, I think with ninja. Okay.
So he got down and he escaped. So later on he came back and he choked the prison guard there. He put on his clothes, he took his gun, and he liberated many war prisoners there. And then he came back and did this over and over again until the people that they liberated became an army, and they decided to make him the leader. He became a major there. Yeah. The Allied power, they started donating weapons to him, seeing that what he has done. So later on, they also gave him a post, and he fought the Nazi Germany, and then they again offered him another post, and then he refused. He said, I'm going to go back to my country. I won't have to see my country. He was very feared in Italy. Like, there was one instant where Italians would paint their face black and rob under his name. So he got pissed, and he decided to execute them because they were tarnishing his reputation. So he was very feared, and he came back here, and he also fought for Ethiopians during at Ogaden.
Okay. So his case was, again, Rambo couldn't even do it.
James Bond
wouldn't even do it.
No, he got nothing on him.
From fiction. So, he was one of those officers that first drove into Italian capital on his jeep.
Yeah.
You see how that, I'm sorry, that's brave.
Raising the Ethiopian flag. And he did that every time he won a war or he won a battle. He would just take the Ethiopian flag and he would wave it every time he goes. Yeah, and people respected him. They offered him different titles. So amazing. But you know what I wonder though, like before we move on to a different topic.
I also want us to talk about the role of the woman. We haven't mentioned that well. The women, they were so they had a lot of role that it was so notable. They were just they were like doctors, they were giving a medical care, the bandage. They were the one who was helping the wounded. They were the one providing fresh foods, like I mentioned before, not only kolo, but the fresh raw meat, dried meat, like what we call kwanta. It was women's role. And then also there was this woman, Shawara Gadgadle. So she was, there was this EWVSA, Ethiopian Women Volunteer Service Association. She changed that into a clandestine movement, which is what we call Yost Arbenya, right? So they were just, they were so supportive of the men or the patriots on their fighting. I just want to bold that,
Yeah, you're right. They even gave shelters to the patriots.
Exactly.
One of the great things that they did is encouraging soldiers. So they did folk music. And there is a saying called Sitailako Mutaifaram, which translates to, like, if your girl or if your woman sends you out to fight a battle, then you're not going to be afraid of death. Like, you're going to fight tooth and nail, right? So that's what they did. They encouraged men. They gave them shelter. Because, like when you're a woman, you can be like, okay, I'm a woman, I'm harmless, but you can give shelter. They gave shelter, as you said earlier. They were responsible in
Even
treating
forged
the
paper.
soldiers.
Forged paper for the active patriots to travel through the Italian control or the enemy controlled paths. They even forge paper.
They forged paper.
Yes.
They also act as spies, like by enticing Italian soldiers.
Yes.
And they also cut telegraph wires because cutting communication is key, because one of our disadvantage was we did not have communication. So if they didn't have communication, it was tough for them. So they played a huge role. They're very smart and very strategic.
Exactly. Yes.
And brave too.
Brave, exactly.
We are.
Yeah.
We are indeed. Taking credit for our mothers.
Our ancestors, exactly. Their blood ran through us.
Most of them did the incredible things. One of those incredible things is just what you said, giving information. They give information to patriots where the Italian soldiers are located, their movement, where they are stationed, their planned activities, their planned attacks. Women did everything. And sometimes even they shelter, they hide the patriots. And some of them actually paid the price for even, sheltering patriots. Because patriots back then are shifters, and shifters are meant to be killed.
So at the end, what happened is the Italian joined the Axis power, and it was a threat for Britain, for the Allied power. So what they basically did is they decided to aid Ethiopians with weapons and artillery so that we can win against the Italians. And not a lot of people, but some say that the only reason that we won is because Britain was supporting us. Like, we won at the mercy of Britain. But honestly, we did not give them, we did give them a hard time for 5 years. And it might have been longer for us, it might have taken longer for us to defeat the Italians, but we would have still be victorious because we were, Ethiopians, our forefathers were relentless. Why am I saying we are?
Yeah.
Can I claim it? Okay, so we were relentless when it comes to fighting.
Yeah.
So we would have been victorious either way.
Yeah.
Italy would have never controlled the whole of Ethiopia.
They would never settle. They would never settle down enough to do what they want. The patriots, everywhere, they were just doing what they can, not to be colonized, we can say.
Exactly.
And then they were fighting till the last drop of blood. So the Italians, some people say Ethiopia was colonized because the Italian army was here for 5 years, but it's not colonization. They never rest. They were always fighting the patriots who are they never give them rest, right?
Yeah. Surrendering felt worse than death. Yeah. So there was no way that they would have given up, and kudos to them. So that's why we're celebrating this day.
Yeah.
Okay, so our viewers, thank you for staying with us, and I hope you guys had fun. For next time, we're going to come with a different program, so stay with us.